Good morning, everybody. Senator Romaine Quinn, representing Wisconsin's 25th Senate District, is our very special guest today, Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and we are streaming this month's live chat with Senator Quinn, which we do the last Thursday of every month on our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and on our Twitter page. So however you may be watching, welcome. Thank you for joining us. If you have a question for Senator Quinn or a topic that you would like for us to discuss, please feel free to let us know in the comments during today's live show. Romaine, good morning.
Morning. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we had a little late start this morning. That's okay. It happens.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. Technical difficulties seem to happen often on our shows. I don't know why. Usually it's Fitzy related.
It's not just him now.
Yeah, no kidding. So now we can say it's somebody else as well. Yeah, so I had written down a couple things I do know for sure I wanted to talk about, which was just because it happened, Wisconsin Supreme Court, the primary election, and then Governor Evers' budget proposal. Wanted to kind of get into that. But first, I don't know, it's been a month. How's it going? How are the kids?
Good. Things are good. They're growing fast, and we've kept Rowan alive for 2 months now, so life is good.
Kept alive. That's good. And I can see, where are you today? Are you down in Madison or are you at home?
No, so I was trying to get home yesterday to make the kickoff of the Berkey. Unfortunately, the storm prevented me from getting there. So I made it home, but I didn't make it further north.
Oh.
And so I'm home, locked away, 2 walls separating me and the kids. So you can't hear any sound.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm tucked away in my small house somewhere to avoid the kiddos for the next half hour.
And you're down in what, Cameron area, right?
Yep.
All right. So, Spooner, what's the weather like down there? Because it's pretty bad up here.
Well, Ben, it's snowing.
Yeah,
it's
fair enough.
It's pretty. I had to go to the truck to get the laptop, and she's getting deep.
You left your laptop in the. Okay, we're going to talk about that offline. And no wonder why we're having so many issues trying to sign in on your laptop this morning. Because you leave it out in the cold.
Yeah, it warms up.
Okay, we'll gloss over that. And I also, of course, this is meant to be, these shows, is for a chance for you to talk. Oh, by the way, we need a name for this. So, like every week, we do Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy, with Sheriff Fitzgerald and I. And our monthly show with Congressman Tom Tiffany, it's Breakfast with Tiffany from the play from the movie back in the 40s or 50s, Breakfast at Tiffany's. What should we call this? And I was thinking about that while you were working on your technical issues this morning, that I really liked, wasn't it the Democratic Party? I think it was in Barron County. This was back when Allie Holzman, I think, was running against you, back when you were in the Assembly and running in the 75th. It was, they had these just wonderfully well done Quinn spins. Do you remember those?
Oh, spin.
Those are so, and your head was spinning around. It was like this little GIF. It was just fantastic. But I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe we just don't call it that. But we need a name for this. So start thinking about that.
The Batman music behind it.
It was so good. Like, I'm not sarcastically saying, I'm like, that was very well done, what they did. So, yes, and good morning, Sharon. Good morning, Renee. And good morning, Joan. Again, if anyone has a question for Romaine, let us know. So first, obviously, again, the only 2 things I had written down I want to talk about, but then the last half of the show is, what do you want to talk about? So Wisconsin Supreme Court primary was just held on Tuesday. Any surprises there for you? And what are your takeaways from it?
Yeah, no, we knew it was going to be close on the quote unquote conservative side. Judge Jennifer Durrow ran a pretty good race, especially down in the southeastern part of the state. I think Dan Kelly's name was much more familiar in outstate areas, and the fact that he's visited them, and so did Judge Durrow. We were watching the results come in, and we knew that he'd lose the WOW counties, Waukesha, Ozaukee, Washington, but it was still fairly close, and outstate us were still out of counting yet. We knew Kelly was probably going to win. So I personally supported Dan. I think he's a strict constitutional conservative. You know how he's going to vote, not because he's telling you ahead of the election, which Janet Protasewicz is doing, but because he strictly adheres to the proper role of the courts, right? So if there's someone that's suing the legislature saying, I don't like concealed carry, I don't think we should have that. Well, it's not the court's job to decide public policy. It's the court's job to decide if the laws we pass follow the Constitution. And so there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't have concealed carry. So unfortunately, what we're finding in this race, which I think I mentioned the last time I was on the show, is that I think for the first time ever in at least recent history that we have a judge openly commenting on cases on how she would rule on issues before even getting on the bench. So that completely upends this idea of an impartial judiciary. Because when you go to court, whether it's in criminal court or whether you're in front of the state Supreme Court, you are assuming you are walking in to an impartial court and you are getting a fair shake when you have your day in court. And so for judges to start commenting on items that could come before them and letting their opinions be known ahead of time before even hearing the facts of the case is really dangerous. And it's really precedent setting for the wrong reasons. And I think that's why there's been a number of ethics complaints filed against Janet Protasewicz, because she shouldn't be commenting on abortion when the legality of our 1849 law is going to come before her. It doesn't matter what your personal opinion is. You review the law, how it applies to our Constitution, and determine if it should stand or not. And so the fact that she's making these comments is really quite alarming. So overall, it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of money pouring in. I can't remember how many millions have already been spent on both sides. And frankly, it's because there's nothing else going on in the country.
Well, yeah.
And the fate of the court in Wisconsin is going to determine a lot. So you have billionaire elitists from all over the country, putting their thumb on our race here in Wisconsin. I think the last numbers I saw, Protasewicz's campaign, 96% of her money is from out of state, and 80% of the 96 is from New York and California alone. And so if that tells you anything, is to wake up and vote in April, because yesterday's results were pretty dismal. I just commented on Facebook yesterday that northern Wisconsin as a whole, no matter who you voted for, as a percentage, we voted a lot less compared to the other parts of the state. It was pitiful. And so my point was, if you're not going to make it in person, order an absentee ballot now and mail it in. If you don't trust the mail, bring your absentee ballot filled in and submit it in person, or vote early in person, because our side, the Republican conservative side, cannot continue to wait until the day of, because it's clear that it's not working anymore. So no more excuses. There was weather on Tuesday. I couldn't get out of work. The kid was sick. I had to get groceries after work, and then by the time I got home, it was 8 o'clock. No more excuses. The margins are too thin, and there's too many options for you to be able to vote for you to not make it. So figure it out.
Fix it. Just figure it out. I want to circle back to what you said about 96% and we're coming from for Judge. I'm going to say Judge Janet, because I'm not going to say her last name correctly, so I'm going to say Judge Janet.
Sure.
There's that 96%, but that could go the same way for anyone else. It just happens to be right now in this race that it's for Judge Janet, a liberal or left wing, and that money is coming from out of state. Why do we allow that? And I'm sure that's just like universal for every state. But is there anything to this possibility or any discussion of going, you know what, we should see if maybe we could just, if you want to donate to a campaign, you better live in that state. Now, obviously, there'd probably workarounds for that too, whatever. But is that just, no, that's just the way that it is. Because I can't fault the person for getting money from somewhere else, but it is a little weird that they don't even live here. But at the same time, she's playing by the rules. She's not doing anything wrong. And I'm sure, again, that goes both ways. There could be, I don't know, like Tom Tiffany, next time he's up, maybe he gets a whole bunch of money from Connecticut or something. I don't know.
Right.
Is that something that has ever been discussed, or is it, no, that will never change? It's in the Constitution and done.
I think it's really hard to limit because it intertwines with free speech, right? So I have a right to donate to candidates. I'm exercising my political speech to have an impact on a race. And even if I don't live in the district, for instance, that race could still impact me. So I don't know how the courts would rule on that if we try to limit outside spending, because it's interesting when you talk about this race and the implications of it. And I think it's waking up out in DC, because if the court flips and Janet has already said the maps we have today are bad and she's willing to throw them out. So maps that already went to the Supreme Court, they've already been adopted, and then we're already using them. She has said, they're under threat, frankly, because of her comments, and that she's willing to recognize that she thinks they're unconstitutional. So what could that mean even nationally? So Republicans right now, what do we have, like 4 or 5 a seat majority in the House? If you redraw Wisconsin's maps, we could lose a seat or two. A current congressman could get drawn out of his seat. You never know how that works. So there are national implications to this Supreme Court race.
Well, help me understand that. So I've heard that too. She had said that they were gerrymandered and et cetera. But how does that come back up? I mean, can the Supreme Court, now obviously you're not on the Supreme Court or a part of the Supreme Court, but you may have some more insight to this, and certainly I would. Can they just, is that how it works for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin? They can just say, you know what, now let's go back and look at another case. I was under the understanding that something has to be brought to them first.
And it will be.
Okay.
It will be. So someone's going to litigate again, bring it before the court because they know they'll have the favorability, and then try to get a new ruling. It's funny. I was in Madison. It was 2 weeks ago. We had a candidate rollout, and for all of us new people to meet the core of lobbyists. And so, again, lobbyists do help us do our job. It's not about the evil money part, whatever, but they lobby for specific groups, and they help us understand issues that we otherwise wouldn't know. So it was a big meeting. Hey, all you freshman legislators, here's the lobby core team, names, faces, people you'll see over the next couple of years. And while we were doing introductions ourselves, it was funny. I heard a hot mic conversation from one of my colleagues, a fellow freshman Democrat, make a comment saying, "Oh, don't worry, after April 4th, that guy's going to be gone because we're going to draw him out of his district." So they are openly, brazenly know that if they win in April, they will bring the maps back to court and they will get redrawn. And they are openly talking about drawing representatives, even like me, out of the district. So there is actually a real chance that I could be gone after April 4th, because under the governor's maps, I wasn't even in my own district anymore.
Right.
Remember, he broke Tarrant County up 3 ways for the first time in 4 years, but it wasn't on purpose. But it was just convenient. So I was in the Eau Claire seat, not the Rice Lake to Superior seat. So that's why I'm just trying to wake people up. It's not about me, but there are
kind of.
It
is kind of. You have a vested interest in this more than just the statewide. I mean, clearly. And you said after April 4th, so I would just assume, like this last one that the maps were redone, it was for the next election. Is there a scenario where if Judge Janet gets in, and if that is a situation where they now bring this back up to the court and they decide, no, those are gerrymandered, one, what does it default to? And then two, when does it become applicable? Is it the next election, right, in a year and a half?
That's the problem, is it's totally up to them. So not only would it come before them, she would say, okay, the maps stink, and then they get to draw their own, or they could take the governor's maps, which part of his own party voted against because they considered him racist, how they drew Milwaukee and the African-American population. And then at the same time, they could say this is going forward for 2024. They could say it starts immediately. They could call new elections. They could say, it's good for 2 cycles. We don't know. But the fact that they're willing to rip out any form of precedent to achieve a political outcome means everything's on the table.
And well, that's okay. It can't be everything. There has to be like a limit, right? I mean, you can't just, say, now we have, we as in this case, we'll say liberal or left wing. Now we have control of it. Is there like this just happened, a little over a year ago, the maps, year and a half, something like that. Can they go back to something 5 years ago and just, so everything that the Supreme Court has done up to this point, is that just fair game? And then we can just bring it all back up. Something that happened 50 years ago, well, we can actually bring it back up and change everything. Because that doesn't seem like that's supposed to happen. Whether you agree with that stuff or not, that just seems weird. Like the court made the decision at the time. That's the decision. Now, I get there's some extenuating circumstances there, but can they just bring anything up?
Well, we know all these issues are going to be litigated. So Act 10, for instance, has been challenged consistently. And there are little nuanced cases talking about, public employees, who has the right to unionize, how all of that works. And so right now it's happening with the UW health system. Are they allowed to be, under Act 10 or not? And so all of those issues could absolutely come back up. And the justices could say, oh, we believe that public employees have a constitutional right to unionize and completely throw out Act 10. And so, everything's on the table because the problem is who is in charge of defending our state laws when we go to court? Josh Call. And so, if you want to talk about the issue of abortion, for instance, again, an issue that should be decided by the political branch, by the representative branch, not the court. But he already said, for instance, I'm not going to defend our law in court. So we're going to get sued, and our attorney is going to go in and sit on their butt the whole time. And it's going to go in front of a court that already said you have a constitutional right to an abortion no matter what the legislature says. So we're really upending this whole idea of the separation of powers. And it's really unfortunate that we're willing to throw out a system to achieve a political outcome. I get it. It's frustrating, right? There's gridlock. Nothing gets done. Evers doesn't get what he wants. Legislature doesn't get what he wants. When we talk about school choice or you name it. But what you don't do is seek an alternative that circumvents the entire process to achieve what you want to achieve. And so that's the real danger here in April is how far will the courts go to achieve a political outcome that they never should have had a say in? And we're going to find out real quick.
Now, I suppose your people that may be listening and say, well, whatever. Romaine, you really just want to save your own seat. And if the roles were reversed and the Democrats controlled the legislature in Madison, and there was a more conservative, it was a 4-3 conservative court on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, you probably wouldn't be saying this. What would you say to that?
I would take it issue by issue and identify to me how a conservative court would overturn, let's say a progressive policy, right? Because every time we've seen the court rule when it's been a conservative majority, it's upholding the separation of powers or upholding the rights of the legislature to make these decisions. So yeah, you might not like the fact that the legislature's been in Republican hands for 12 years, but it doesn't mean the legislature shouldn't have a right to make the decisions. Perfect example, during the shutdown, we saw Governor Evers issue his executive order, declaration of emergency, forcing the state to close during the early parts of COVID. We knew statutorily it was only good for a certain amount of time. And when that expired, he used his secretary designee to extend it. Well, there's no provision that allows an unelected bureaucrat to keep the state shut down. It's just basic 101, right? We can debate.
Agree with it or not. That's not how it works.
Yeah. Should the state be closed? Shouldn't it? All that stuff. And let's have that debate, right? But we should all agree that an unelected secretary does not have that authority to continue that beyond what state statute says. And that decision went to the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, and it was 4-3. It should have been 7-0. But it was 4-3.
That's one of the few that I looked at and but I don't understand this. I'm just looking at it logically. Right. But if they're not within their ability under their job title to do this, then I don't understand why it's happening. I'm not kidding. I just didn't understand it. I still to this day don't fully get that at all. Right.
Well, in a nutshell, the ability of the legislature to do their job and upholding the legislator's role and upholding current state statute and how we operate is under risk right now with this April court. And so it's not just, literally it's how you want to interpret it, right? What about county shoreline zoning? We talk about Act 10. What if I sued and said, I have a constitutional right to feel safe in my community, and the fact that you are concealed carrying your weapon makes me feel unsafe. And so my right to feel safe trumps your ability to carry a concealed weapon, and all of a sudden that's gone, right? The court could throw out concealed carry. The court could throw out the castle doctrine. The court could throw, there's no knowing where this court could go. Mm-hmm. So my point is, don't let it get there.
Well, honestly, I've said this on many shows. I just want people to follow the Constitution in that way. And I get there's some people that may not like that, but that's it. I don't care if you're conservative, or I don't care if any of the candidates are liberal or where they stand on anything. Just, I actually don't kind of really care, and I suppose I should, but I don't. Just follow that. If I were a liberal, I probably would have voted for Judge Janet.
Right.
That would align with just about everything that, as a liberal, I probably would like, and that's, what's that?
And the problem with that is, like, the justices shouldn't even be defined as
They
liberal
shouldn't, but we do, so it is what it is. And same thing on the other side. If that was a question I had for several people. I think Fitzy and I brought it up on Tuesday when we did our election predictions. Should it go wrong? That if I were a conservative, I would look at this and, Dan Kelly would be the obvious choice. He literally has everything that he's done. You can look at it, and if you liked it, just vote for him. I didn't understand but if you liked everything he did, then why would you vote for Jennifer Doro? She's great. Fine. She's been on our show. She was amazing. It was wonderful. But if you're looking at it just logically, if there was nothing that the person did when he was on the bench that you didn't like, then why would you vote for somebody else? So I think the two that were supposed to win won, in my opinion. So obviously it's going to be interesting coming up in April. We'll certainly talk about that next month because, these are the last Thursdays of the month. So we'll talk about it next time. I want to ask you about Governor Evers' budget proposal, but first, we'll be back in 15 seconds after a message from Spooner Health.
Satisfaction surveys and in conversations with patients, they appreciate the fact that staff got to know them. Staff really took their preferences into account, and they just feel grateful that they are being cared for as a person.
To learn more about our services, visit SpoonerHealth.com.
Mike Schaefer was going to be on
It's the worst. I regret asking them if they wanted to do a commercial for these shows because now I have to see Mike Schaefer every single show. It's terrible. So Evers did his budget proposal. Was there anything in there that, let me back up. He did his budget proposal. Representative Magnifici, who had commented earlier, she had sent something, kind of her takeaways or I think it was a guest column. Representative Chan sent something, his statement on it. I believe Senator Staff Schultz did as well. Didn't get one from you. There must have been a reason. Why didn't you send out a response? And if you did, I didn't get it. So maybe you didn't. I just missed it somehow. What were your thoughts about the proposal?
So I tend not to do that right away because, frankly, I didn't know what was in it. And I just, like you, like the public, I get tired of the back and forth. And so I told my staff, we're not sending anything out because we know very little. And I'm not going to make a statement before I know more. And it's not taking away from my colleagues that have. But I want something more in depth. So when I send something out, I really want you to know why or what I'm trying to tell you, not just the Cliff Notes version. So fast forward to now, we know a lot more. And there's a lot in there. I think the speaker said it right. There's a lot in there that we agree on, but the totality of it is the problem. And so let me put some context to it. When Walker last left, his budget was about $76 billion.
Okay. After
Evers came in, his first budget wound up being, I think, in the $83, $84 billion range.
Well, I'd say it's about the same. We are talking billions of dollars, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And now this budget brings us to $103 billion. So tell me that in and of itself is not an issue to pause and say, time out, right? So over the last two budgets, we're going to grow government by 28, almost $30 billion, right? That's
83 billion to 103, that's 20 billion. Right?
Right. Yep, yeah. 20 billion, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking at a 20-ish% increase.
Sheesh.
So when you look at, because Walker's was 76 billion.
Yep, 76. Okay, if you're comparing it to that, then it'd be about 26 billion.
Right. In a matter of really a 6-year period.
Yeah.
And so when you break down just this one, for instance, there's a lot of questions. Right out of the gate, where does it leave us 2 years from now? If we adopt this proposal as is, spend, cut, give back, whatever it is, take it as is. If we see no revenue growth and there's no new expenditures heading into the next fiscal budget, we are $1.4 billion upside down. So right out of the gate, why would you hand the legislature a document that runs a deficit on its face?
I think I have a guess on that one, but I'm going to ask you, why would the governor propose that? knowing it's a $1.4 billion deficit? Because I got to guess, but I'm not, I have a political mind, but, I'm starting to learn how some of these things work. But I could be wrong.
Right. So in fairness, he could say, well, we're going to predict 2 to 4% growth over the next year, so it'll eat that up. But again, that's assuming he wants no increases next time. And I'd fall off my chair if he didn't give someone an increase in the next budget as well. But the problem is, and which he can do, right or wrong, is that I'm going to propose to give everyone everything they want. I don't think he said no to one group, right? And then now the legislature will go back, the adults in the room that have to
Which are all Republicans, they're controlled by the Republicans right now, both houses.
Right. Well, we're the ones that have to actually balance the ledger at the end of the day. We have to balance the checkbook because it's our obligation to pass a budget and spend the dollars. And we're not going to leave us structurally upside down. The work we've done, the austerity we implemented since 2010, and the building and the saving, we're not going to throw that out in 1 year. But the problem is now politically, the governor can say, well,
it's those freaking Republicans.
I tried, but those darn Republicans won't work with me.
See, that's what I was thinking.
That's why you didn't get what you want, but it was in my budget.
It was that Romaine Quinn, I tell you.
Yeah, I was at a meeting with Congressman Tiffany the other day, and I said during my speech how easy it would be to be in the minority because I can promise the world, not deliver, and then blame somebody else, right? And then I can take credit when it goes good, but I'm not responsible when it goes bad.
That is
Tom
nice.
reminded me, hey, I was in the minority in Congress. It's not fun. Don't wish that.
Don't wish that.
So I'm not going to ask for it. But the point is you never have to be held accountable. And you're not the one that has to actually balance the books at the end of the year. So, again, right or wrong, it is what it is. Politics, not. But in and of its face, like in totality, his budget is just a non-starter out of the gate. And so the news is going to print, the Republicans threw it out and started from base. Well, I think that's what the public wants us to do anyways, right? You want us to build a budget from the ground up, dollar for dollar, taking everything into account and starting from where we are today. And that's what the legislature is going to do through every department, every source of revenue, every program, and they're going to build it from the ground up. What does each department and program need and how much? And we're going to do that from the ground up. And I think that's what the public should expect of their legislature to do. And so that's what's happening now.
We have a couple of things I want to circle back to here. Joanne had said this was from a previous, what we're talking about before, too much division. 100% agree with you, Joanne. Both sides. However, I don't really actually see, and Romaine, you can certainly attest to this, but I know Democrats that are elected officials that are Democrats. I know elected officials that are Republicans like yourself. They're actually like really good human beings, good character. They want the same things. They just have a different way of doing it. And again, you can tell me if this is right or wrong. I actually see the majority of these people behind the scenes and privately mostly agreeing with the both sides or with the other side. But really, there's a lot of how they necessarily talk in private is different than they're going to do to the media. Because they have to present it a certain way, and they have to follow, party things, and we have to. But there's a lot on both sides that don't really like this, but going to have to kind of get behind this one. Do you see that too, or am I? Obviously, I'm on the outside. You're on the inside. Is that true? Where most of the time we're pretty close, and we all kind of want the same things. We're just trying to figure out how we're going to do that.
It is close, and I've always said that too, right? We all want the same things. We're just taking different paths on how to get there. Yeah. I think a week ago, I had a great conversation, almost a couple hours at dinner with Representative Jill Billings from the La Crosse area. I served with her in the Assembly, Democrat, and it was great. It was good to catch up. We have a lot in common, a lot of the same goals, and I would consider her pretty moderate in her caucus now. And back in the day, she really wasn't, but her caucus has gone so far to the left. She's more normal, right? Or whatever you want to.
A Republican's version of normal. Got it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. My version, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, there's good people on both sides, and I get frustrated by it too.
What do your Democrats say about you? If you look at from a Republican point of view, that you would say that Jill Billings is more of a moderate. What do your Democrat peers? How would they refer to you? Would they say that you are moderate? Or are you a fringe?
I don't know. That's a
That'd be
good
interesting.
question.
I should do a
I'm
poll.
curious what they say about me.
I'll start asking them, and I'll let you know. So this is also going back to that last conversation. Dave Wilson, there it is. Great opportunity for Judge Duro to follow through with her commitment to support Justice Kelly. Great point, Chief Wilson. That is going to be interesting to see what she does. She did come out, before the election and say that I'm going to endorse my opponent if he wins, and that conservative opponent being Justice Kelly. It'll be interesting to see exactly what that looks like. I think that's what Chief Wilson is referring to there. To what degree? Is it just a statement saying, yep, I support him, done? Or is it campaigning for that person? Is it, that'll be very interesting to see. I know I'm kind of a nerd that way, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Yeah,
So,
I think she was sincere. I think
so too.
Yeah.
But we'll find out. All right. Well, those are the two topics I wanted to make sure that we talked about. Is there? We started late. We still have time. What else is going on that if you want specifically the 25th Senate District, but just people in Wisconsin, what's going on that people should be paying attention to that maybe right now is just not on our radar?
Yeah, I think one thing to consider going forward is what do we do about this Brewers proposal?
I don't know anything about that.
So the governor put in the budget to spend $290 million to extend the Brewers lease at AmFam Park, right? And to keep them in state. And so that's a problem. For me personally, I haven't seen how the numbers shook out yet. I was opposed to us building an arena for the Bucks to keep the Bucks. I don't think that taxpayers should be supporting billionaire owners so they can continue to profit off of people playing a game. And
right. We're going to have to bring up Foxconn at some point then, right? Oh, that's different. You said playing a game. Okay, that is different.
And they both have economic impacts. There's a difference. Manufacturing actually creates wealth, right?
Yeah.
Versus a tourism aspect, which all important, all drives
it
economic
activity. So who paid for the building to begin with?
I don't.
I'm sorry. Was it taxpayer dollars is what I'm asking.
Which Miller Park?
Well, I don't think it's Miller Park anymore, but the Brewers that we're talking about, right? Or maybe it is still called Miller Park. Is it?
No, it's AmFam. I mean, everyone still calls it Miller Park.
Miller Park. Oh, okay. So I'm sorry. So what is this $290 million, and that's taxpayer dollars? What is it? I don't understand it. It's so we pay $290 million, or not actually pay, but I mean we do, but we don't. It's not more money. It's just in the budget.
Yeah.
In his proposal, so part of our tax dollars goes to keep them there.
Yep.
Is that normal for a state to do?
So we are. I mean, it's a national conversation we have to have, right? Because we have states that want to poach professional sports teams, and if the local taxpayers don't pony up, there's a threat of them moving. So I think
yeah.
There's an offer on the table, I think, from California to build a stadium for the Brewers if they'd move at the end of their lease. Now it's not up for a while now, which also puzzles me is why we're doing it this budget when we're years out on our current lease. But that's the problem we have now. I think it was the Cubs last time when they went to the taxpayers and basically threatened saying, hey, we need upgrades, monies, whatever, that I think Illinois actually blocked. And so, like everybody else, they went to the bank and got a loan and did it themselves. Shocker, right? So, I'm going to move if you don't build me a new house. Well, see ya, right? Yeah, or go to the bank and get a loan. You're worth $1 billion. Your franchise is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So you're going to be able to do that. So but I'd like to hear that from people. I mean, do you think that we should have to go to the mat to keep the Brewers? Because I don't want to get 200 phone calls saying, I can't believe you let the Brewers leave Wisconsin. Now, again, that's not going to happen. If we did nothing, I think there's like 10 years left on the lease. But that's a conversation we have to have on how far do we go to keep professional sports teams that we all love, unless you get frustrated with me, like me, when they take over Moose Country during games and I can't hear music. But that's something people have to start thinking about because that's an issue that's coming up too.
Well, I think we'd have a little more sympathy to that situation if the owners weren't billionaires. Because that's like people who own sports teams, that's old money. That's not new money. Typically, it's not. That is holy buckets.
Yeah.
It's crazy amount. No, I get it. They want a profit too, but their
Yeah.
profits is usually pretty good. So
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's so far away. It's difficult. It's different up here in Northwest Wisconsin because I can't go to a. It's cheaper for me to go to a Twins game because it's an hour and a half away versus 5 hours down Milwaukee. So I really don't care. I mean, I would hate to see them leave, but then again, I'm a Cubs fan, so go ahead.
Oh.
That'd be fantastic.
I don't know why I talked to you then.
Yeah.
If you are a Brewers fan, please contact the office. Not
Yeah, you'd
Ben
want to say. Don't you think that's kind of a? So let me go back to that kind of that first question that I asked you, or one of the earlier ones regarding why is it happening? You just said that this thing isn't up for 10 years. Why are we talking about it now? And that's not a. I think that's actually probably would be categorized as a rhetorical question.
Right.
It's got to be political, right? It's a feel-good thing. It's well, we got to help. But why are we talking about that right now, and not? I wouldn't say 10 years from now, but how about in like 4 years? That's like 2 more budget cycles. Why are we talking about it now, you think?
I think because the state's sitting on so much money, probably, I'm guessing. It's easier to do it now when the checkbook's full than it is in 4 years if we're broke, which we could be if we keep spending.
It's a tactic I use with Jerusha all the time. But we have money right now.
Right.
And if it wasn't for her saying, but,
Right.
she's, gives me the very nice, it's a great idea. But, maybe we should look at that in a year or two.
Right. And so
It's
we have
boring.
real opportunities here in northern Wisconsin. Right now, you remember James Bolin, who ran for the state senate? His group has finally latched on to a really legitimate developer that could come in here and transform the old Telemark site.
Yes.
It could blow up the Berkey, grow it exponentially. It would make northern Wisconsin a destination place again. They're talking about investing $200 million into Cable, Wisconsin.
Who's investing?
To develop a 500-acre site.
Not taxpayers.
No, all private dollars. But they're coming to the state saying, what programs, tax credits, etc., does the state have for us to want to come here and not go to Aspen, right, and do a destination resort there? And so as we're having conversations with our economic development secretary, our housing secretary, the answers we're getting is, well, we've got a lot of stuff for manufacturing, but not really for you. So we can spend $290 million to keep the Brewers, but we can't spend $10 million to leverage $200 million in investment in northern Wisconsin. So these are the kind of conversations that us Northerners have to say, time out. And, we're not going to continue to allow you to do things in other parts of the state and completely neglect our areas of the state, especially when there's real opportunity on the table. And these are the kind of back and forth and negotiations that we have to have, and we're having all the time in Madison.
You were out of the legislature for what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Yep.
And now you're back. It's been, January for a month, almost 2 months, month and a half, a little over. Do you regret it? Or like this stuff that you're having? Obviously, when people just get elected, which I still think is silly, but it is what it is. A lot of these people are freshmen legislators and immediately got to do the budget, which I don't even know where the bathrooms are. So how would I know how to do a budget? But it is what it is. Are you happy? Are you back in it going, man, I missed this? Or what was I thinking? I had a good life and I didn't have to deal with any of this stuff. Or is it, I kind of really do love this.
Yeah, it was. So someone asked me the other day, do you like the Senate more than the Assembly?
Oh, good
and
question.
I said, it's too early to tell. So we'll see. But no, I think it's really important right now with the budget that we have, with the issues going on. There's really a lot going on in our district right now between issues with Crex Meadows and Burnett County. We have tribal tax issues over in Ashland and Bayfield County. There's a lot of fixes, frankly, that I didn't know about that I'm spending my time on that I wish I didn't have to, but they're problems. And I'm happy that I'm here at the table to deal with them now versus if I wasn't, because I don't know what the outcome would be. Not saying that I'm going to get everything I want, but it's important to be at the table when we're doing this stuff. So that part, I'm happy I'm in Madison to make the difference that I think I can, because we're really at a critical point and at a really opportune point to make a difference in the 25th.
Yeah, the next thing you guys should look at, I'm not trying to promote addictions for people, but gambling. So, like, Fitzy and I have been talking. I'm like, I think I want to put down like $100 on something. And I know that we can go to now, I think in Turtle Lake, I don't know what it's called, but it's a casino there. And then you can go, it's like called sports books. What?
Sports betting. If you got to go there, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, he went there once, so I want to go. But, it's like almost an hour from Spooner. And this last week, I'm like, I think I'm just going to go to that DraftKings or, you see that all the time. So I go, I sign up, I do everything. I put my money in. I only put like $200. It was right for the Super Bowl. That's what I wanted to do. I want to bet on two things, which I would have won, by the way. And then after I did all of it, then I had to verify my location, which is weird because you have to download this thing and then it will check your internet. And it says, sorry, you can't do it in Wisconsin. I'm like, yeah, but what? What is that? I see you advertising on games that I'm literally watching in Wisconsin. I just assumed I could do it. So I'm assuming that has to do with an agreement with the tribes, which that's perfectly fine. Then they should just get an app. I just don't want to have to go there. Just let me do it from home. Is that something that is, I'm not actually that concerned about this, by the way. I'm just wondering, why is that again? Why can't people in Wisconsin use like DraftKings like most other states can?
Yeah, it comes down to our tribal compacts.
Okay.
And that you have to be on tribal land to be able to gamble, because gambling is illegal in the state of Wisconsin. Remember, tribal land, they're sovereign nations. So you're not on Wisconsin land when you're on tribal land. They're sovereign. And so that's why the state negotiated compacts where we gain a certain amount of revenue to allow them, not to allow them because they can, but to have those gambling facilities.
I see. No, that totally makes sense.
Yep.
And I'm sure this is not a field that you're aware of or look into very deeply. Are they, from your knowledge, able to have like an app, or no, you have to be on their land, at the casino, at the place? Because what would prevent them from just doing like a DraftKings type thing?
Yeah.
Where you just have an app, and I'm living in Spooner, so I don't have to drive to Turtle Lake.
Because then you're not gambling on site, and they'd rather have you in there because they want you to buy food, grab
Well,
a
no,
drink.
I get all the reasons for that.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. I don't need another vice. Drusha says I can only have one, and I currently have two, so I'd have to get rid of both of those before I'd have another one. So,
well, I would tell you it's worth the drive, even if you just go in and have.
I want to go. Fitzy said it was actually pretty incredible. He said he was really impressed with it.
Yep.
All right, maybe the three of us will run over there and put I can spend $1.
Yep.
That's it. So I'll put $1 on something, but I want to go and check it out. All right, man.
And then pull me out of there. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I think next time we're going to have a lot more insight on where the legislature's at on our budget. Because right now we're having conversations with schools, with CISAs, with counties, you name it, on what does that look like? Where does share revenue look like? What does transportation look like? What does all those needs that we have, what are they going to look like over the next couple of years? And we're going to have a lot more insight on that as we're negotiating by the time we're on the show again. So it'll be a lot more insightful on that front.
When is there like a deadline for the budget, by the way? Or is it whenever it's finished? And it could be in, April 1st. It could be September.
Yeah, you try to have it statutorily done by June 1st.
Okay.
And remember, in Wisconsin, if for some reason we don't come to a budget agreement, we just go on autopilot off the last budget. So we don't have shutdowns. We don't have those games like the federal government does. But it's a little chicken and egg, because if you don't pass a budget, the checkbook keeps building. The rainy day fund keeps building. So the surplus, the money we have, it doesn't get spent. However you would spend it, It doesn't get spent because we're just on autopilot at that point. Everyone's based on the previous numbers.
And so does that roll into the next? Wait, how long does that last? If it's a June 1st, if there isn't is there like a cutoff? That's it, or we're rolling on the last one, but we could change this in July and come to an agreement. Is it just like until we come up with a new one, or does it get pushed off to the next budget cycle?
No, so we could come to an agreement in December, right?
Got it.
At that point, our fiscal year has already started. So, so that's why we try to get it done. And that's why there's incentives for both sides to get something done, because, Republicans don't get tax relief and the other side might not get the spending they want if we do no budget, right?
Nobody wins,
And,
almost.
and you could argue fiscally it's not good to continue to have billions and billions in a checkbook, and not either reinvesting it, giving it back, because we know, we're losing money when it sits in the bank with inflation right now. So yeah, there's incentives for both sides to get a deal done. We'll see what that looks like.
I can't wait. All right, what do you have coming up this weekend?
Well, I'm still going to try to get to Hayward.
Oh, right, yeah, the Berkey.
Not participate. I use gravity to ski. I don't actually get to exercise across the ground.
Yeah.
So don't think I'll ever do the Berkey, but to get up there and see folks, and those developers that are looking at that project are up there. I want to meet them. So lots going on, but we know the snow's still coming down, and give our crews some time out there to get it all cleaned up before you start traveling.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for coming on, man. Can't wait till next month.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Special thank you to Wisconsin's 25th Senate District Senator Romaine Quinn for joining us for our chat today. Senator Quinn and I will be back here next month as we do all of these on the last Thursday of each month. Reminder, on Tuesday, Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I will be back for our latest episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching, and as always, have a blessed